Bonsoir à toutes et tous, bonsoir également à celles et ceux qui suivent cette soirée à distance à partir de la chaîne YouTube du Centre Pompidou. Merci de votre présence pour cette soirée exceptionnelle consacrée à la situation en Ukraine, en témoignage de notre solidarité face à l'invasion que l'Ukraine subit et à laquelle elle résiste. Je suis Mathieu Pot-Bonneville, directeur du département Culture et Création du Centre Pompidou, et au nom du Centre, au nom de son président Laurent Lebon, mais aussi de la BPI, co-organisatrice de cette soirée, de Christine Carrier, sa directrice. En leur nom donc, je voudrais commencer par souhaiter la bienvenue à nos invités, aux artistes, aux curatrices et curateurs avec lesquels cette soirée a été de part en part conçue, dans un dialogue où l'invitation est en quelque sorte réciproque, parce que vous accueillir ce soir, c'est aussi répondre à l'initiative que vous avez lancée et autour de laquelle le dialogue s'est noué depuis la semaine dernière. C'est peut-être la nature même de l'hospitalité que de s'exercer toujours dans les deux sens. On est toujours un peu l'hôte de son hôte. Et à ce titre, j'espère que le Centre Pompidou vous sera ce soir hospitalier. Je parlais d'une soirée exceptionnelle, elle n'est pas pour autant isolée. D'une part, parce que le Centre Pompidou a régulièrement pris l'initiative de bouleverser sa programmation pour faire droit aux ébranlements du présent. Il l'a fait en 2017 pour une rencontre intitulée « Quelle Syrie pour quel monde ?». Il l'a fait en 2020 pour une rencontre intitulée « Discrimination raciale, que peut la culture ?», en écho direct à l'assassinat de George Floyd. Dans chacun de ces cas, ce lieu, le lieu où nous nous trouvons, retrouve la vocation que son nom lui assigne, celle d'un forum dédié à la circulation de la parole, de cette parole qui vient circuler pour réverbérer les fracas du monde et s'en saisir ensemble. Cette soirée n'est pas isolée d'autre part parce qu'elle s'inscrit dans le cadre d'une semaine spéciale. Semaine ouverte lundi dernier par la projection du film « La Terre est bleue comme une orange » d'Irina Tsilik, dans le cadre de la Cinémathèque du documentaire, et semaine qui se poursuivra ce vendredi avec la projection du nouveau film de Sergueï Loznitsa, en présence du réalisateur dans le cadre du festival Cinéma du Réel. Cette soirée fait écho aussi à une initiative exceptionnelle du Musée national d'art moderne. Sur ce point, je cède la parole à Nicolas Liotchi-Goutnikov, conservateur et responsable de la bibliothèque Kandinsky.
Merci Mathieu, bonsoir à toutes et tous. C'était évidemment émouvant de se retrouver ici à cette occasion particulièrement tragique. Il se trouve que le musée a travaillé depuis maintenant 2 ou 3 ans avec un groupe de collectionneurs ukrainiens qui voulaient montrer qu'un art existait en Ukraine après des donations que nous avons pu recevoir par le passé, Nous avons reçu une 50aine d'œuvres en don au musée et nous allons les montrer peu à peu. Vous pouvez déjà, si vous montrez au musée, aujourd'hui, découvrir l'œuvre du groupe REP. Nikita Kadan est ici avec nous en ligne, ainsi que Jana Kadirova. Vous pouvez aussi découvrir une salle consacrée à l'école de Kharkov. Et donc, je vous invite bien sûr à y monter. C'est un geste de solidarité pour nous important. Et merci encore à tous de votre présence ce soir.
Merci beaucoup, Nicolas. Un petit mot de la forme particulière que vont prendre les échanges de ce soir. Lorsqu'il filmait en 1973 la pièce de Shakespeare, le dramaturge Carmelo Bene a intitulé son œuvre « Un Hamlet de moins », en suggérant qu'il y avait déjà eu bien trop de Hamlet et que le rôle d'une nouvelle version devrait être aujourd'hui de décaper les formes convenues pour recreuser l'abîme du texte et en extraire du sens. On pourrait dire de la même façon que, et c'est ce que vous avez souhaité, c'est ce que nous avons souhaité ensemble, nous voudrions que cette soirée soit un débat de moins. Je veux dire que l'enjeu n'est pas d'ajouter à la confrontation des opinions telles qu'elles se mettent en scène sur les plateaux de télévision, mais de se mettre à l'écoute de voix, de témoignages, d'images, d'inquiétudes et de questions dont il s'agit de prendre la mesure et qu'aucune réponse ne saurait aujourd'hui refermer ou faire taire. Pour cette même raison, nous vous proposons de distinguer nettement le temps de l'écoute et le temps de l'échange. Il y aura bien un espace pour la conversation et pour les questions et les réponses, mais il viendra dans un deuxième temps, après le temps compté de notre soirée, de notre séquence retransmise en ligne. Pour cette même raison, je ne poursuivrai pas plus longtemps ce propos introductif. Je voudrais seulement formuler une série de remerciements. Merci au collectif Initiative and Visions of Radical Care et Beyond the Post-Soviet, ainsi qu'à l'espace d'exposition La Maison de l'Ours, avec lesquels cette soirée a été conçue. Merci à Canal Bruxelles, au Centre Pompidou-Metz, au Kunstmuseum de Bonn, qui ont décidé de retransmettre cette rencontre. Merci à Jean-Max Collard, qui ne peut malheureusement être avec nous ce soir, chef de service de la parole. Merci à Joséphine Huppert pour leur agilité et leur expertise sans faille, sans lesquelles cette soirée ne serait pas possible. Merci aux techniciens de la régie, du service de la production audiovisuelle, de la direction informatique pour l'exercice difficile qui va suivre. Exercice difficile puisque, vous le verrez, alterneront des prises de parole et des vidéos. Une partie de la soirée se déroulera en duplex depuis Kiev et il faut aménager de surcroît la traduction et la transmission. Merci à nos interprètes pour faciliter la compréhension de ces échanges qui se tiendront tantôt en français, tantôt en anglais, dans ce que nous avons appelé lors de la préparation un franglais décomplexé. Merci enfin à Sylvain Bourmeau, producteur de la suite dans les idées sur France Culture, journaliste, directeur du quotidien d'idées AOC, ce quotidien dont la lecture est ces jours-ci tout particulièrement précieuse. Elle l'est toujours, mais ces jours-ci, l'acuité des analyses des circonstances de la guerre en Ukraine sont précises, circonstanciées. Sylvain conduira les échanges ce soir et je lui cède sans plus attendre la parole. Bonne soirée à toutes et tous.
Merci Mathieu Podbonneville. Thank you. Since we have to switch to franglais décontracté. And as Mathieu just said, it is not a debate. This is a place and a time for hearing speeches, testimonies coming from Ukraine live, and also by artists and curators that are here in Paris or that have recorded videos, especially for tonight. And as Mathieu Podbonneville just said, the initiative for this evening comes from 3 different collectives, and I will immediately invite you all to join me. And first, I will ask you, Christina Solomuka, you're an artist, you're based in Paris, and you're part of la maison de l'ours. Maybe you can explain us to us what is la maison de l'ours and why you choose to take part in that evening.
Ok. Bonsoir, je vais parler français.
Ok.
Je suis Christina Selumka, je suis artiste, je suis enseignante et je représente l'association La Maison de l'Ours, qui est un lieu d'exposition qui est géré par des artistes, Paolo Codelupi et moi-même. Il est dédié à la production et la diffusion d'œuvres d'art contemporain. Notre association est née d'une réflexion collaborative avec les artistes lors du premier confinement pendant la crise du Covid-19. C'est une plateforme d'échange d'idées et qui réfléchit au changement politique et social lié à la société et l'art. Nous avons des liens d'amitié avec des artistes et des structures artistiques en Ukraine et depuis le début, nous collaborons avec eux. Donc c'était absolument naturel de nous joindre à Elena et à Sacha pour organiser cette soirée.
Donc la Maison de l'Ours is joined by Beyond the Post-Soviet, which is another collective. You're part of that collective, Sasha Pevak. You're an interdependent art worker, as you call yourself.
Thank you very much, Sylvain. Good evening. So my name is Sasha Pevak, and next to me are also Julia Fisch and Patricia Couvet. We are here today to represent more than 50 people who joined efforts under the name of Beyond the Post-Soviet. Our collective started as a research group. We were working on many questions, of course, but today it is most relevant to mention that, among other things, we were interrogating Russian imperialism and Soviet coloniality, and also the ways in which they survived through time and in different configurations. So this was always at the core of our work. Today, history is only repeating itself. The war in Ukraine did not start on February 24, 2022. Russia started this war 8 years ago when it occupied Crimea and wreaked havoc in eastern Ukraine. From the beginning of our group, we were very attentive to this ongoing violence and its consequences in culture. And it was a sad coincidence that while the tension on the Ukrainian border was growing, we had planned an emergency meeting for February 24. At that moment, the collective mobilized, and through our networks, we started to coordinate a strategic action to support Ukraine and its artistic scene, from decolonial thinking to decolonization in action. Today, we are working in 3 directions. We support those cultural workers who stayed in Ukraine, morally, materially, logistically, and through visibility. We support displaced cultural workers with logistics, material help, and accommodation, thanks to our colleagues and friends all over Europe. We also support them by providing information via our website, contextforukrainians.art, and individually, and also through visibility. And finally, we collaborate on preserving works of art and archives that are currently in danger. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sasha. So besides La Maison de l'Ours and Beyond Post-Soviet, there is a third collective, which is at the core initiative of tonight. And it is a collective called Initiative for Practices and Visions of Radical Care that was started during the COVID pandemics.
Right. My name is Elena Sorokina, and I speak here on behalf of this initiative, the Initiative for Practices and Visions of Radical Care. It is a very young association, just 2 years old. And during these 2 years, we have been working with artists at risk, artists in exile, or artists who have been trying to escape countries at war, or countries in conflict. And we never thought that Ukraine might become one of those countries. Of course, we have been connected and we were very aware about the gravity of the situation because the co-founder of the initiative, Natasha Petreshin-Bashlez, and myself, we have been working with Ukrainian artists for over 15 years. So we knew what was going on, and yet it was a surprise. We started with these connections, which also became friendships over the years, allowed us to be operational immediately, and this is how we connected to other initiatives, and this is how we started our action. And our action is small, but we do what we can. But today we're here to listen to the artists, and I would like to introduce two artists, two first speakers. One is Nikita Kadan. Nikita Kadan has worked internationally, and many of you know his work. Nikita is speaking from Kiev to us, where he is currently stays, and he didn't leave the city. Right after Nikita, Katarina Radchenko will be joining from Lviv, and Katarina worked in Odessa before, where she was a director of the International Photography Festival in Odessa. Nikita, we welcome you.
Thank you, Lena. Thank you. So nice to see all of you who were gathered at the event dedicated to Ukraine. Greetings from Kiev. I'm speaking with you from art gallery, Old Voloshin Gallery turned to a bomb shelter. Each space was a bomb shelter during Soviet period, during Cold War, and now it has this function again. Actually, during first week of war, several artists with their families, they lived in this space. Now they flew to the west of the country, and I stay here, and I even made a small group show of the works I found in the storage of the gallery, including some historical pieces like futurist artist David Burluk, who connects Ukrainian and Russian art history, who is one of these figures in between. Today is the 14th day of Russian Ukrainian War, or to say more precisely, a Russian invasion, which continues the 8 years war. The war which started in spring 2014. So here is some contradiction. Lots of people, even in Ukraine, started to speak about this in terms of war only when Russia crossed the separation line in Donbass. But before this, it was a war on Ukrainian territory as well. During these days, I'm here in this cellar, in a shelter, in a gallery shelter for 12th day before I stayed in my apartment. During these days, I communicate with international media a lot. I try to participate in organization of some Ukrainian cultural events abroad. Like today, we'll open Ukrainian 2 days video screening letter from the front in Castello di Rivoli in Turin. Now the screenings on facade of Vienna, Kunsthalle and Leopold Museum are going on. And I guess there will be more like Ukrainian cultural representations in a context of ongoing war, in a situation of urgency, when art can give visibility to the suffering of people in Ukraine and displaced people from Ukraine. But sooner or later we'll switch to this like deeper and more complex function of art, like reflection, understanding of what is going on. So this is a situation when a lot of Ukrainian cultural actors are in Kiev. Some are still in Kharkiv, which was heavily bombed. Kharkiv terribly damaged by Russian shelling, by Russian aviation as well, while Western countries feel concerned and anxious about the problem of closing the sky above Ukraine. Yeah, this question is still discussed, and a lot of people in the West feel really endangered in such a scenario. So for them, it's like a start of World War III. So, you know, like we Ukrainians are the price which is to be paid to postpone this risk. Anyhow, we see that Putin crosses all the possible red lines for more than 10 years. Because before Ukraine, there was Georgia. Actually, there is a big history of like post-Soviet Russian imperialist invasions. So yeah, it's an ethically tough question if to put your own people, like to put civilized Europeans into a zone of risk, or to use Ukraine as a shield and believe that Putin will not cross the border of United Europe in any form in a nearest future. So what else is to be said? Yeah, now each day brings new victims, and it's a time for urgent decisions for Western world, and like maybe it's a time to open the eyes and to see that it's not only about helping Ukraine, it's about our common self-defense. Because Putin's war is not only against Ukraine, it's against the very idea of democracy and diversity. Russian Federation is an extreme right-wing state. It uses pseudo-anti-fascist rhetorics based mainly in Soviet tradition to hide extreme right-wing and neo-fascist aspects of its own politics. Russian Federation is extreme right-wing, anti-democratic, homophobic, and racist state, imperialist and colonial. And this is like our field of struggle in terms of ideology. I think it's first of all even not like a national struggle, but the struggle which has a really strong universalist dimension. And yeah, not only for Ukrainians and not only for people in the West. Okay, we are speaking about like structures of United Europe and Western world, but we also speak about all the people of the world for whom ideas of democracy and diversity are crucial. Yes, it's our common struggle and it's our common self-defense. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikita Kadan, for your speech and your analysis of the situation. I will hand over the mic in a way to you, Katerina Rodchenko. Can you hear us? And you heard, I guess, what Nikita said just now. It seems there is a problem with your sound.
Okay, now it should be.
It's okay.
Good evening. So, like, just a few words about my background, and because like 2 weeks ago I had to move from Kiev to Lviv, and actually like I had to bring my family from Odessa to Lviv, and now we are safe here, and it gave me possibility to work. And actually, before like the situation, like I work for the Odessa Photo Festival, and I would like to tell that this festival we established in 2015, and actually exactly when the war starts, like the idea appears that like it's important to establish this photography network, because like when the war starts in 2014, then it was a huge wave of manipulation in mass media, and it was like the biggest manipulation through the visual images. And for us it was important like to kind of provide the education how to work with these visual materials and how to work against the propaganda, or how to know how to read the images in mass media. So, and this like 7 years, like the festival exists in Odessa, and this year we plan with our team like to continue to make the 8th edition of the festival. And actually on the beginning of February we changed our topic, because it was already like kind of shaking situation in Ukraine, so we decided like to think about the plan B, but still in the beginning of February we didn't thought that this full-scale war appears and comes to Ukraine. Honestly, like it's like we didn't believe in it. And so like last 2 weeks, like we had like completely like to change our activities, and now we are gathering photos from the colleagues, photographers who is working on the front line. And I would like to mention that these photographers, they're not war photographers. They became war photographers during this time, during these 2 weeks, and they had like to risk their lives to bring the information, the visual stories from the cities which are like heavily bombed right now. And for us it's important like to share this information, to share these photos to the different international medias, but as well we are trying to organize exhibitions in the different countries and like to collect support and collect money for our army and the volunteering service. And yeah, I would like to say that like I agree absolutely with the words of Nikita, and I would like to mention one thing which is also important for me, because like last days like a lot of my colleagues asking if I'm planning to go to Europe, and I would like to say that like honestly like people here like they don't want to go like to move from Ukraine. We would like to stay here, and we would like really like to work for this country, and but like to be safe, and the people have to have to live, especially people who has small kids, especially who has like the old parents. But for us it's important like to really to stay here and to fight and to really like to make the changes for our country, and like to make this possibility like to actually to finish this work and to do everything what is possible from our side. And of course, like, it's important, like, to work for this visibility, and I can see that, like, most of the artists, they're working exactly for this way of, like, making this war and these true stories visible. And a lot of cities right now destroyed, like, except Kharkiv. It's also Mariupol now is, like, it's not possible, like, to evacuate people from there, and the people are staying in the terrible conditions. Like, it's not possible, like, to take the dead bodies from the streets. They're staying a few days there, and it's just, like, not possible, like, to take them out and, like, to burn, like, in the normal way. And all these, like, things what's right now going on in Ukraine, like, it's not only our problems, like, it's not the problem between Ukraine and Russia, because, like, this is, like, how also Nikita mentioned, like, this is the historical, like, already long process, and now I can see that this is the time when it should be stopped, this process, and it's really important, like, to act, like, to maybe, like, move to the more radical ways, like, to action, like, to find this different way how it's possible, like, to stop it, because, like, I'm not sure that, like, Ukraine will be the last country, and but, like, what I really hope that this will finish soon, like, because, like, it's, like, every day we have a lot of victims and the people who, like, suffering here, and it's, like, just not doesn't have the possibility to stay in their places. And also, like, a lot of people moving now to West, and I can see in Lviv and in Uzhhorod there's already no places where people can stay. All the schools and all the gym spaces, like, just, like, completely occupied by people. And from another side, is as men can't move from their cities, there's also, like, a lot of men stays in the Kharkiv, Mariupol, in other places, and also a lot of artists stuck there, and like, even doesn't have the possibility to work, because, like, most of the time they're sitting in the bomb shelters. Yeah, so this is briefly from my side, and thanks a lot that you're organizing these events, because I think it's super important, like, to really to share these stories.
Thank you very much, Katrina Radchenko. Thank you to both of you, live from Ukraine. We will mainly hear artists and people working in the world of art today, but we thought it was interesting to have a time for a discussion with a researcher in social science, and Anna Colin-Lebedev will come and join me for this. Anna Colin-Lebedev is an associate professor at Paris-Nanterre University. As I said, she's a social scientist. She works in the field of political sociology. She works, and I think it's very important to stress that out, because she does field work. I mean, when she talks about Ukraine, and I encourage every one of you to follow a Twitter account, which is one of the best information place at the moment about what is going on. It's always informed by the previous work, which is not the case with all the sudden experts of geopolitics. So if you please, I'd like to ask you first to put it in context what is happening now. We just heard that the war, as we all believed, did not start 2 weeks ago, but back in 2014. It's a long story, and you've been working especially on the way people in Ukraine have tried to resist to this offensive.
Yes, absolutely. It's really hard to be a sociologist in these times, especially when you know people on the ground, and you don't only know people on the ground, but you live there. And I lived in Ukraine for several years, so it's also one of my homes. And it's extremely painful and hard to be objective in this kind of situation. But I think artists need to show and make people feel what is going on there, and we social scientists need to make people understand actually what's going on. So this is, we are part of the same work, which is extremely painful, but at the same time I think necessary. Yes, I think what we realized that there was an aggression of Ukraine by Russia 2 weeks ago, but actually the war definitely started for most of Ukrainians, for Ukraine, the country as a whole, and realized by most of the Ukrainians 8 years ago with this, let's put it in, maybe in the context. Actually, what is important to understand there is that the very beginning of the war is the desire expressed by Ukrainian people to be closer to Europe and to the European Union. It's the fact that Ukrainian people reacted to the refusal of their president to sign an association agreement with the European Union and sign instead of this an agreement with Russia. So Ukrainian people reacted to this very actively, protested against it, wanted to show clearly what their desire as a population was, and it was completely unbearable, I think, for the Russian political power. We understand it right now, that actually it's this desire to turn away from Russia and to turn to Europe for the future that was the impulse, the first step of what is going on right now. So the first step of aggression is the annexation of Crimea, definitely. But then the whole war in Donbass that was presented sometimes here as a civil war, but actually, of course, it has a civil dimension because it's Ukrainian citizens in Luhansk and Donetsk popular republics, and it's Ukrainian citizens on the other side of the front line. But the war was organized, shaped, fueled, armed by Russia. So it's been a war between Russia and Ukrainian response to Russian aggressions since 8 years. And in these years, I think the society mobilized a lot, and maybe this is something we can also, I can also elaborate a little bit. We were all like, people who know Ukraine were not surprised at all, actually, by the reaction of the Ukrainian society when finally, the 24th of February, Russia attacked. But from the outside, it seems a little bit a surprise in how comes that all these people started to resist this quickly. Actually, it is one of the reasons why is because people would know, and people knew and were preparing to the next step of aggression and preparing to the war for 8 years and lived in a state of war in expectation of the war that may become again for 8 years. For example, I was doing interviews around 2016 with ordinary Ukrainians living their ordinary lives, and then who joined in 2014 and 15 volunteer battalions to go and fight in Donbass to protect their countries. And in 2016, actually, the West was already forgetting about this Donbass story, you know, like it's a frozen conflict, nobody cares anymore. And the two boys, I have a lot of interviews, but I remember two of them recently for an article, so I will share with you these two ones. The two boys were a lawyer and a researcher in biology, and they were back to their ordinary civil lives. But at the same time, what they were telling me during this interview in 2016 is that we don't have the feeling that it's over. We are preparing, and we will. We are ready now. We know how to hold weapons, and we will train a little bit more. And of course, in 2016, people would expect that they would do it for nothing, just security, etc. But the whole society was not. I think what was expressed there by Katerina is that nobody was expected. I mean, people were hoping that there would be no such an aggression, but when the aggression came, everybody was ready. Women, men, everybody in their professional situation already knew what would be actually their place in this war.
I mentioned your Twitter account. I read in that Twitter account a few weeks ago maybe already, that you felt there was a sexual division of work. If you look at researchers, it's only men who work on Russia and women, young researchers who work as you do, but also Yulia Shukan or Anastasia Fomichova or different other researchers. How do you explain that?
Okay, I think I'm really careful there in saying this because I didn't think enough about this situation. But I think the idea of this colonial idea of Russia being the center and Ukraine being the periphery had also an effect in our social science. Studying Russia was more, let's say, valued on a job market, and inside studying Russia, studying politics, Kremlinology, geopolitics, energy issues was valued, and men would more likely do in this kind of subjects. And in Ukrainian studies, when you realize this, we realize this right now, because when you look, people invited to the media, those who do field work actually in Ukraine are mostly women, because women were more interested in, or expected to do, more precisely this, work on peripheries of the empire, more social issues, understanding of societies, less geopolitics. So yeah, it's not, I wouldn't say that it's that radical, there are exceptions, but I think our vision of Ukraine being the periphery also had an impact on the way we studied it, but actually this periphery appeared to be the very center of Europe, and this is the paradox here. Actually, this is where the future of Europe is happening right now.
Just one more question for you, Anna Colin Lebedev, about Russia, about the structure of power, because I remember when it was USSR, we had a lot of criminologists, people that were able, as some others do with the Vatican, for example, to look at the little conflicts between great men or smaller ones. It all disappeared. Now we have one man, Putin, and we don't know much about the structure of power in that society, the relationship political power has with economic power, the oligarchs that are sanctioned at the moment, and also the social movements that are taking place in Russia, and not just in intellectual groups, but also in the Russian society, there are some movements. So I have the feeling that we lack a lot of field work, a lot of studies of grassroots sociology. But what do you think about this this power and the possibilities of it to be overturned?
Big issue. I cannot do it in 2 minutes. Definitely, but let me say that, what we're observing right now, and which seems shocking to us probably, is this idea that a war is going on, the population, Russians would tell for decades and decades, everything is fine, just let's not have war. The rejection of the idea of war was very present in Russian culture and narrative. And now you see people very divided around this, and some Russians genuinely support the armed conflict. And I think this is a somehow shocking paradox. A first way to understand it would be the information they have. Actually, in Russia, many people do not realize that the war is going on in Ukraine. And I think one of our main objections is to help actually Russian journalists, but also our media, to break this information bubble and to make people understand that, oh, come on guys, it's not a small armed operation in the border to help to help civilians restore a civil order. It's something else. So people support war because they don't know what they support. But on the other hand, actually, during all these years, the political power has built a social contract with the population. And the terms of the social contracts in these last years was, we are, and it's also about information, we are surrounded by enemies. Actually, most Russians have sympathy for Ukrainians, and this is a huge paradox again here. They have sympathy towards Ukrainians, but at the same time, they think that Ukraine is manipulated. Ukraine does not exist as a subject. The poor Ukrainian people are manipulated by the West, NATO, the US, with the final goal that is to attack Russia. And this narrative is extremely powerful. So I think for many citizens there, for example, what's happening now with the sanction that the West implemented against Russia, they have the feeling that, okay, things are going worse, but it's because we've been attacked by NATO. So it's all part of the same story. So we have two fronts actually here. We have the front, like the information front, and we have to do something with this political power, and this is another issue.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you.
Thanks.
I will ask Julia Fish to join me so that she can introduce two video testimonies from two artists, videos that have been recorded already.
Yes, thank you. I'm Julia Fish. I'm a part of the collective Beyond the Post-Soviet, and I will introduce you to video testimonies by two artists who are currently still in Ukraine. One of them is in Kiev, and Aliftina Kahitse, she's around 20 kilometers away from there. So the first video made by Boris Medvedev, who was born in Ukraine and works between Kiev and Odessa. Trained as a professional architect, he is a part of the collective Odessa Commercial Public Art. As a collective, they were trying to work with the past of city Odessa, with its modernist past in order to reimagine its future. They were collaborating with people, doing workshops, and this is the way how Boris was acting before that. We actually met, me and Sasha, with Boris a couple of months ago because we were preparing a project for Odessa, and we were planning also to do sound walks or workshops together. Boris, when war started, he tried to join armed forces, but because he was not specially trained for that, his initiative was declined. But now he joined resistance forces, and being an architect, he is involved in different initiatives and different activities, building barricades and supporting the resistance in Kiev. And the second video testimony comes from Aliftina Kahitse, who was born in Zhdanivka in Ukraine and lives and works in Muzhichi. She's a quite internationally known artist. She was taking part in Manifesta, different museum projects in Amsterdam, around the globe. And she is known for her illustrations and storytelling built in illustration format. She was working for over these 8 years since the war started in Ukraine to tell the story of people. She was in contact with people in Donbass and Lugansk, and her own mother was there on the occupied territory without opportunity to leave. And that was the time when Aliftina started also to translate the stories within illustrations. Her mother died trying to cross the checkpoint after 5 years of occupation. And Aliftina, since when the war, the last war, I don't know how to call it. I do not know if you have the right term for this now. But the war started on 24th of February. She continues to produce illustrations to tell these stories. And she opens this publicly. You can follow on her Facebook. And these are placards, appeals to protests. These are fixations of debates, which are told within her art. So this is a kind of diary in images. And she was also considered by me and Sasha as a part of the potential project. And unfortunately, I could learn her on 24th of February within this context. And I remember what she told that time, that she doesn't want to leave Ukraine. As Katerina also told, she doesn't want to leave her home because she did nothing. Why should she? She wants to stay. So she's staying there and preserving her archive, and now you can see both testimonies.
Thank you, Yulia. We are going to start with Boris Medvedev video.
Я знаходжуся в столиці України, у Києві, у гарячій точці. І я хочу розповісти про самоорганізацію, про існування в умовах війни, про те, що це якийсь інший світ, у який ми потрапили, і намагаємося бути максимально корисними. Щось в цьому є. Я, як архітектор, можу собі представити опенколи на якісь тимчасові проекти, що можуть спростити самоорганізовані системи, логістику, перебування у метро, коли є загроза. Київ is the capital of liberty. Було б так круто, якби закрили небо. Але це ваш вибір. Це висвітлення того середовища, в яке ми попали.
Єдине питання, цей рахунок не актуальний.
Вони хочуть вбити нашу культуру або апропріювати. Звичайно.
Окей, ми знаходимося в Києві, так, і в країні, яка є атакована Росією, і багато українських міст атаковано Росією. І тут є багато питань, не тільки насправді там трагічності, цієї першої реакції, такої панічної, а мені здається, і якоїсь нереальної стійкості, так, людей, які допомагають одне одному, солідарні одне з одним. Так. Ми говорили, здається, що події, які є в Україні зараз, це дуже про свободу, рівність і братерство. Так? Україна бореться за свободу. Ми як стоїмо в такому братерстві плече до плеча одне з одним. І це така глобальна війна дуже нас волею-неволею, але вирівнює, і ми за рівність насправді можливостей, інформації, ресурсів, їжі, зброї, бронежилетів, можливостей по евакуації, хто хоче виїхати теж. Тому мені здається, що насправді ці три теми можна висвітлювати, але через український контекст зараз.
Супер, дякую.
Клас, дякую тобі.
Мы, военнослужащие 6-й отдельной гвардейской механизированной бригады, обращаемся к оппозиционным средствам массовой информации и телеграм-каналам.
Хватит пугать наших родителей тем, что мы воюем на Украине.
Нас не отправляют на войну. И сегодня мы принимали участие в республиканском референдуме, где сделали свой выбор за сильную и процветающую Республику Беларусь.
Hello, people. I'm so glad to talk to you. I was asked how it could be possible in the future and would be the best for Ukrainian artists. Of course, some of them will survive. I'm talking like this not just to put some feeling of fear on you. I'm in Muzici, which is 26 kilometers from Kiev, and Russian military equipment is like 5 kilometers outstanding. They have planned to attack Kiev, and looks like if there will be a fight between Russian forces and Ukrainian forces, I'm not sure how I would survive. But anyway, so what is the most important things to be done? First of all, if you can, put a lot of time on research with topic of decolonization of whole history of art you have in your collection. What I mean, how Malevich is connected to Ukraine, how Burluk is connected to Ukraine. All avant-garde, which is called Russian avant-garde, is not just Russian avant-garde. I'm totally tired to be in any museums, even in your place, when I'm reading people who were so much connected to my context, and in your captions, in your museum, is written just Russia or USSR, not just Ukrainian Soviet Republic. So, decolonization of whole collection you have. Second, if you find that Ukrainian artist is great artists, and I do believe they are, suggest them visibility, because we have a lot of works we did since Ukraine became independent, and last 8 years, as we have had such incredible events, list of events, long-term protest, revolution, which started in 2013, then the war in the east of Ukraine, and now this attack. And the third, I'm not sure that I'm right. Maybe I'm very emotional, but till I'm so scared of my own life, being in my own village, in my own studio, so I'm over here, having my own house, being absolutely scared, I would say that boycott to all Russian art, doesn't matter who they are, institutions or individuals. Why? Because it's so much about not to say that some people are anti-Putin, some people were pro-Putin, some people this, some people that. It's about the power in economical level, and if you don't collaborate with any Russian artist, with any Russian institution, they will be economically weak. And this is what we do need at the moment, or maybe the panic we will need in the moment, that whole Russian society, it doesn't matter where they are in Paris, or they are in St. Petersburg, or in Moscow, they are all responsible that in 21st century, it's just incredibly crazy war just in Europe, in a country which is bigger than France, very close to the EU, next to Poland, next to Czechia. I know so many great Russian people, and I know that the people who invited me to talk now to you also were Russian. I asked them that if we stop this attack after the war started in Ukraine, then it will be resolved. They just do this sacrifice. If they stop working with any institution in the EU officially, of course they can work as a volunteers, but this is a sacrifice. This is a solidarity, I ask. If to talk about me, so now I'm in my own studio. I can show you how the things are. I will show you my archive. So this is 2 years of my visual art practice. Everything is nicely structured. I just cannot take all this stuff and move it somewhere in a safe place. So I don't have time, but I just want to say that we have such a great art sphere, great artists, and if I'm alive, I would like to share with you my art as well. It's not that I promote myself so much about that you can decide the works which could be absolutely interested for all of you from the point what our history is and what type of conflict in the beginning and now the war we have in why, and how we actually were living for 8 years when this war started. What kind of works, for instance, me personally did. My mom was on occupied territory for 5 years until she just died on the checkpoint because her heart stopped working. And this checkpoint was this new border which appeared between this so-called controlled territories by Russia and our territory. So work hard, think over what I said. I was absolutely honest. If I was too emotional, just because it's just not possible to be with a cold heart, but I try. And if just to become calm and to become a dreamer, the first things must be done after our world would be stopped to rethink when art is functional and how it works, and that the art is so fragile in such unstable piece which we actually do have in the moment, but dream have kind of stable. Maybe this type of things has to be developed in future in art.
C'était donc les témoignages de Boris Medvedev et de Aliftina Kahitse. Patricia Couvé nous a rejoint. Elle fait partie. She's part of the Beyond Post-Soviet collective as well. She's a curator, and she's here to introduce a few other videos and artists.
Hello, good evening everyone. So I will continue to carry the voices of Ukrainian artists. And I'm here with Nikolai Karabinovich, with whom we've been working for a few years together on some subjects such as cultural history, namely in Ukraine through the work of Nikolai. And when I asked Nikolai the questions about what he thinks is important to make visible now, it's raised for us some questions about making visible the so-called peripheries as well in Ukraine, namely Eastern Ukraine and south of Ukraine. And he told me about Salva and Simon, who we are now going to watch the videos and who are now acting to protect the works in Kherson. And I'm giving the words to Nikolai, who is going to talk about Salva and Simon, but also introduce a bit his work.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you. I think I will start from the very important thing that we are all already late here. And the words now doesn't connect to the meanings. And the time is not synchronized anymore. I took this picture less than a month ago in Odessa, and looking to this picture from Odessa, I have a fear that I will see some sort of that images soon. And fear, as you know, eats soul. And next to Odessa, there is a very interesting and important city called Kherson. To give you an example, it's like the same distance between Paris and Lille, from Odessa to Kherson. And it's difficult to explain the complexity of the history of this place, of the importance, all the colonial aspect of that place. But I'm happy that there is an opportunity to speak about the very tiny museum in this place. It's Kherson Museum of Modern Art and Contemporary Art. It sounds like a joke, but it's a functioning museum in a private apartment of one of the artists. His name is Slava, and he ran this museum for more than 20 years. And in this museum, they plan to make a celebration of anniversary of this museum in the beginning of March. But now Kherson is run under Russian occupation. And it was very difficult to ask these people to say something or record something, because art is the last, or maybe one of the last things that they were thinking now. And I think if you want to know about my works and so on, I can speak it in a person here with you, but it's better to give the voice to that guys. Thank you.
Thank you. If we can launch the Simon Kramsoft video.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Семен Храмцов, я дизайнер по профессии и художник по жизни. До 2014 года я занимался видеоартом активно. У нас в школе, в Херсоне была неплохая сильная школа видеоарта, где участники были Макс Афанасьев, Стас Валезловский. Я подружился со Стасом Валезловским, мы с ним делали несколько совместных работ. И как-то нашли общий язык. А Стас – это художник, который, в принципе, знает вся Украина, довольно известный наш херсонец. И когда началась война и аннексия Крыма, мне как-то резко перехотелось как-то делать видеоарт, точнее, делать свои работы такими, как я делал их раньше. То есть была постирония, постправда, постирония. В общем, максимальная ирония, стёб. И как-то перехотелось шутить. И непонятно, потому что вот этот постмодернизм, он появился в реальности. И стало так от этого жутко, ты стал чувствовать себя пособником этим псевдоправдой этой. И я активно занялся раскруткой портала, который я создал со своими друзьями, «Соус», портал, который собирал вокруг себя около 40 художников. Они публиковали свои работы, писали концепции, публицистикой занимались, не только художников разных, и журналистов тоже. Но в итоге этот портал, в общем, там внутренние всякие склоки, и, в общем, он перестал существовать. Хотя для меня это было очень важно, потому что это как бы культурологическое исследование нашего региона. Какое бы оно ни было, оно интересное было. И, в общем, начали готовиться к 20-летию музея. И вот должны были сдать 24-го макет каталога в печать. И вот просыпаемся, и оказывается, что нас бомбят. Началась война, полетели бомбы, начались взрывы, ракеты, летать самолеты над головой. И вот, в общем, стало опять не до этого. Какие-то, я смотрю, с 2014 какие-то жопы какие-то сплошные. Как бы все чередуется. В общем, полетели, прибежали, в общем, начались бои, танки, взрывы. В общем, нас сейчас оккупировали, полностью обложили кольцом российские войска, ездят по ночам, стреляют, фотографируются, убивают каждый день людей, которые выходят на улицу. И 2 дня мы не могли ничего, я ничего не мог особо делать. Понятно, занимаюсь безопасностью своей, хотя она очень такая относительная. Но потом взяли себя в руки, и с Викторией Пагель, с девочкой, дизайнер, которая мне помогает, мы решили доделать, внести еще некоторые правки в каталог и разослать это нашим друзьям в разные страны, чтобы напечатали где-то. То есть, как минимум, это останется, да, даже если там нас не будет, Херсона не будет. Пусть это будет, потому что это стоит того. Это и недаром он назван музеем, недаром он первый в Украине. Это как бы настоящее искусство. Без грантов, без меценатства, без внешних каких-то. Это самородок. Музей самородок, люди самородки, Стасик, Славушка, все жуки и, в общем, все наши пацаны и девчата, критичные дни, все самородки, все классные и очень честные. И, конечно, не хочется не хочется, чтобы это все пропало, чтобы все, что ты любишь в Херсоне, да, чтобы не твой дом, не твоя семья. И да, что все это хочется, чтобы этого не было. Не хочется этого видеть. Мы верим, мы поэтому тут и остались, потому что мы другой жизни не представляем. Это слишком классно, мы слишком это любим. И да, что тут еще добавить? В общем, надо идти, вот как говорите, что тут снимать рубашечку. Так, ну может что-то я забыл сказать. Все будет хорошо. Мы в это верим, держимся на связи.
Now there is another video of the director of the museum.
Exactly. There is another video, but I'm going to read maybe over the subtitle because maybe they're not readable for everyone, so I'm going to read in French.
Здравствуйте.
Bonjour.
Сегодня
Aujourd'hui,
3 марта 2022 года. Музей сучасного мистецтва Херсон. 5 марта
le 5 mars,
мы планировали
on voulait
отмечать
fêter
юбилей
l'anniversaire
музея.
du musée.
В этом году ему исполняется 20 лет.
Cette année, le musée fait ses 20 ans.
Вот, и мы бы планировали, ну, понятное время.
Évidemment, on voulait organiser des manifestations intéressantes.
Ну, понятно, что сейчас
Ce qui se passe en Ukraine actuellement est très clair.
Тем не менее, я скажу по
Néanmoins, je vais partager
сделанной работе,
les informations sur le travail collectif que nous avons fait.
работе
Un grand travail.
мощной, работе, демонстрирующей
Un travail qui montre
такое суспільство, в котором
la
комфортно
société dans laquelle on est à l'aise
созидать,
pour créer des choses.
любить, уважать
Aimer,
друг
de se
друга.
respecter les uns les autres.
Да, 20 лет
Oui, 20 ans, c'est
это Херарт.
Gerhard,
Это фонд
la fondation
имени
Полина
Полины
Райко.
Райко. Это музей сучасного мистецтва
C'est le musée d'art
имени
contemporain
Стаса
Stas
Лизловского.
Poliaski.
Это более 100 проектов, выставок, акций,
Des
участия.
expositions, des manifestations, des participations.
Это прекрасные воспоминания,
souvenirs formidables.
это прекрасное проведенное время.
Des moments formidables.
Это очень не
Ce n'est pas en
зря.
vain.
Много хочется, конечно, сказать и поговорить более.
Il y a beaucoup que je voulais, des
Надеюсь, у
choses
нас
que je voulais dire.
предоставится
J'espère
такая
qu'on aura une autre
возможность.
occasion de le faire.
А пока хочу поблагодарить всех, в первую очередь,
En attendant, je
родных,
voulais vous dire merci à tous,
всех
à mes
моих
proches,
родных,
toute ma famille,
оставшихся, знакомых,
les connaissances,
ну,
les amis
разумеется,
et les collègues,
друзей
bien
и
évidemment.
коллег, без которых вообще мир не интересен бы был
Sans qui le
в
monde
том
n'aurait pas été intéressant.
калейдоскопе, в котором мы его увидели,
Dans ce kaléidoscope
проведя
que nous avons vu
это время в Херсоне,
pendant ce temps à Kherson,
весело, дружно,
l'amitié,
конструктивно
en faisant
использовать.
des choses utiles.
Всего доброго,
Bonne chance.
искусство вечно,
L'art est éternel.
берегите мир,
Protégez le monde
и боритесь со злом.
et luttez contre le mal.
Слава Україні,
Gloire à l'Ukraine,
слава Херсону,
gloire à Kherson,
героям слава.
gloire aux héros.
Побачимось
À la prochaine.
Обнімаю, привіт із Херсона, все буде добре.
Je vous embrasse et je vous salue les Kherson. Tout ira bien.
Thank you, Patricia. We will go on with some other videos, short ones, by artists. Who are they?
Yes. So I'm gonna now present the artists from the Sweeters art group, with whom we have been collaborating for 5 years almost, with my colleagues here, Anna Ten and Natasha Tsilioba. Anna is based in Paris, she's here, and Natasha, she was in Zaporizhia, but now she moved to Western Ukraine. So yeah, our thoughts are for her, and also for Lera and Ivan, who did this video. Sweeters Art Group was presented in the framework of a festival that we co-curated 3 years ago, called Session of Tenderness. It was a response to the Maidan events and the group's curators. The collective was founded out of the necessity to speak about and to create a platform for Russian artists, Belarus artists, and Ukrainian artists to work together. This project, Session of Tenderness, was about sexuality, eroticism. It was about imagining another world, another way of thinking. And so the video that you're going to see tonight, they have been sent today because we couldn't get in touch with Lera and Ivan before. You're going to see they are subtitled in English, and no, Lera and Ivan are in the National Art Museum in Kiev, with 3 cats, and they are protecting the museum with other cultural professionals and art workers. So I'm not going to say more. I'm just going to let you watch the videos and see what they are to say.
Thank you. thank you very much for these introductions to these two videos. We'll go on with other artists. Christina, who was here earlier, will join me again, Christina Solomukan and Antigona. Please come and Theo. Antigona is an artist, but I will leave you, Theo Coppola, who's a curator, introduce Antigona.
Yes, good evening. I'm a curator and arts writer. I'm based in Paris, and I'm taking part in different actions, helping, coordinating in relation with individuals and networks and initiatives such as the ones you were introduced to earlier tonight. And I would like to briefly introduce Antigona. Antigona was born in 1986 in Venezia, and she's a queer artist, filmmaker, actress, and trash model. Her work is mainly dedicated to video, but not reduced to it. She also works with photograph, performance, and among the different issues the work is dealing with, there are horror, pornography, and also the public discussion and norms within society, different societies that are related to it. Antigona arrived in Paris on Monday, and welcome here, and I'm glad that we, at our own small scale, helped to make this happen. So good evening, Antigona.
Thank you so much. One of the first what I want to say to all new generation who comes to Kiev, and everybody says that Kiev it's New Berlin. I tell them about area of musicianal, of clubs, of new underground videos, and maybe someone also is this from you was in the our main clubs like hotel, like closers, and hear some stuff from a great musicianal like Zomer, Stanislav Tolkachev, Konstantin Lobanov, Progressive Future, Vladimir Grantenko, and many others, Savage, who make a lot music in Paris also. And right now, they are all in this war. They make cocktails Molotov, they make metallic stuff to protect trains, rails, and this is a screenshot from my video, Raves on the Bones. I shot it in 2016 years and editing till 2018. And I was prayed to God and dump the war in the bones. I was dancing in the bones. So right now, if this shit war, crazy war with Putin with the Russian militaries don't stop, we will be, and you also will not go in Kiev to raves. We will go to raves on the bones. It will be like own place with growth. I very prayed to my new generation, and I very ask our government to in Ukrainian, and very ask you all to understand situation that the people from the LGBT, from the queer community, from the musicianal area, who are the men, they can't fight. They do the best what they can, but they can't fight. And I very asked to make some most correctly decision to go to make some ways to go to abroad also to the gay community, because they're now totally scared. I understand the situation, but I also understand that we never building some big culture like we did, and we was really famous in the all Europe from our musicianal, from our artists, new artists, and for now it's will be, I don't know how it will be, how can someone after this all dancing and make a light, make a brightly arts. And I very want to scream on everybody in the Europe from the politics structural, stop please the war, please, it will be end.
Thank you, Antigona, for your words. Now we can maybe this evening sort of comes to an end for these hearings and testimonies. We heard very strong words and seen strong images as well. Maybe Christina Solomuka, you'd like to add some.
Ce n'est pas facile pour moi de parler après les témoignages, les paroles que nous avons entendues, et dans les conditions où la situation en Ukraine évolue d'heure en heure, de minute en minute. Ici en France, beaucoup d'initiatives se mettent actuellement en place dans le monde de l'art et de la culture. DCA, l'Association française de développement des centres d'art, est en train de recenser au sein de son réseau les capacités d'accueil de ses 51 membres dans la perspective d'accueillir des artistes ukrainiens et ukrainiennes en résidence. Dans les enseignements supérieurs, l'ANDEA, Association nationale des écoles supérieures d'art et de design public, exprime toute leur solidarité aux étudiants et étudiantes réfugiés et qui se retrouvent sans possibilité d'étudier. Nos écoles souhaitent contribuer à leur accueil sans frais d'inscription et en se mobilisant pour leur fournir un logement et les moyens de subsistance. Les écoles de création parisiennes, ENSAD, Beaux-Arts, Fémis, Cergy, Conservatoire de musique et danse ont engagé les échanges également dans ce sens. Ces différentes écoles se reprochent du Crous, de l'Université Périssel, de la Cité des Arts pour envisager des conditions d'hébergement. Plus largement, avec le réseau Eurofabrique, qui réunit écoles des beaux-arts et de design européennes, nous avons commencé une réflexion sur la création d'un réseau national européen afin de coordonner nos actions. Le ministère de la Culture est partenaire et de nombreuses fondations se sont également engagés de nous soutenir financièrement. Nous sommes en contact avec le Bureau des arts visuels de la ville de Paris et le Centre national des arts plastiques pour imaginer des actions et pour tisser des liens. Je n'ai cité que quelques exemples parmi tant d'autres, mais je m'interroge sur la responsabilité que nous avons toutes et tous et sur les actions que nous pouvons mener à long terme face aux catastrophes passées, actuelles et à venir. Comment les liens culturels que nous construisons aujourd'hui peuvent être pérennisés? Comment faire durer les structures d'aide que nous sommes en train de mettre en place? Comment cet élan de solidarité peut se transformer en pratique de solidarité plus largement? Merci.
Thank you, Christina Solomuka, and I'd like to thank you, each of you who has spoken tonight, and I won't cite all the names, of course. I just would like to mention again the names of the collective, because they are the ones that had the idea for this night at the Centre Pompidou. So, Initiative for Practices and Visions of Radical Care Beyond the Post-Soviet and La Maison de l'Ours. Thank you so much for tonight. So this is the end of this first part, and now we can have sort of informal conversations with everyone around here without the cameras and the microphones. Have a good night.